time to talk about AEW for the week. I'm mostly going to talk about last night's Dynamite because I was there live for my first time going to a live AEW show. Been to many WWE shows in my life, but never AEW until now. I have some positives to say, but I also do have some negatives to say about it as well. The easy positive to say is that it was a fun show, of course. But I will say that if you're not having fun at a wrestling show, then something's wrong with that company. If you're going, even if it's an indie show, you go to have fun. The crowds are usually fun for the most part. And I had fun at this event. I went with some people who are other big fans, other person who's a semi-fan, and also a person who is not a fan at all. So I have some various opinions to go over on the show overall. I will say about the taping of Dark, I was pleasantly surprised with the taping of Dark. There was actually some fun matches that were going on. They did some fun stuff. I complain about, and I still will say that the complaint is very real when it comes to AEW. But my complaint with shows like Dark and Dark Elevation and even Rampage is that they don't do enough storytelling on those shows to get people over, really. It's just a bunch of matches. Now maybe we'll see some backstage segments on Dark and Dark Elevation that will be some story movers, but I doubt it. But there was some still in-ring stories on Dark with the whole Ethan Page stuff, with him owning Matt Hardy in Private Party and tensions between him and Isaiah Cassidy was a fun match there. We got to see Athena continue her heel work, beating up her opponent after the match. Got to see some local heroes to California wrestling, including Willie Mack. He was very over. He unfortunately lost to Brian Cage. I thought that was, if Willie Mack's actually going to come into AEW, you could have gave him the win over Brian Cage, honestly, because the booking of Brian Cage in AEW has already killed him. Brian Cage is not booked like a big man in AEW whatsoever. So nobody's going to give a shit about Brian Cage anytime soon. I mean, obviously the die-hard AEW fans, they cheer anybody, as I saw at this event. Half the crowd cheers anybody, whether they're heel or face, which I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It kind of is if you're a heel, in my opinion. I don't think villains should continue to want to be cool villains that are cheered. Even MJF has fallen into that trap these days. He's no longer just a pure heel. He falls into the cool heel who tells bad jokes. I'm already getting into the negatives. Let me reel back into the positives. The positives were obviously the matches last night at this event. I thought my personal favorite match live was Bryan Danielson versus Takashita, because it was good. It told a story. We had some false finishes, even though it was pretty clear Danielson was going to win. Danielson did very good kicking out at the very last second in some of those moves where it looked like Takashita was going to get the win. So that was a great match, I thought. Obviously, live, the ladder match between Elite and Death Triangle was very fun live. It's funny because if I was watching that match from home, to me it would just be just another ladder match with all these big spots. But live, it's very fun watching those kinds of matches. I give a lot of crap to the Elite, mostly the Young Bucks, for just being a bunch of flipping and flying moves. But I could definitely see why they are fun live. I mean, this is not my first time seeing the Young Bucks live. I've seen them live before at indie shows back in the day. But I still think that live, obviously, the Young Bucks are great. But as a product overall and to grow an audience, I just don't think they appeal to a lot of people. We'll get to that here at the end when I talk about the negatives of the live Dynamite. The Moxley and Adam Page match was also a good one. I've talked about for several weeks now on this channel how I'm just not feeling Moxley lately. He needs a break, and I think they're finally giving it to him with their angle that he might have a concussion. But that match kept it in the ring a lot. It was a fight. It wasn't what it needed to be. That's the story they were telling, that Adam Page was concussed thanks to Moxley. So they went out and had a fight, and that looks like Adam Page may have given Moxley a concussion storyline-wise. That was great. I can see the argument as to how that can be the best match of the night also. So those three matches for Dynamite, good, great, live. They were fun. They were great matches. The Lee Moriarty and Big Bill versus Jungle Boy and Hook was okay. I mean, it was what it was. The small guys getting the win over the big guy, even though he didn't take the pin. I felt like that was logical. And the women's match was okay, I guess. I mean, a big chunk of the crowd was wondering, is Mercedes Moné going to appear? They even kind of trolled the crowd, which was dumb. So let's get into the negatives. Tony Khan dropped the ball on Mercedes Moné for the live crowd for sure, by giving hints that it could happen, by letting Britt Baker say the boss line a few weeks ago. Perhaps Mercedes will still debut at some time, but look, for this big LA show, they fell at least close to 4,000 tickets short when they were here the first time. And I think a big portion of this crowd will probably not come back for a third time, so they're going to have a very hard time, especially if they come back to LA late in this year. Maybe they'll come back for a pay-per-view, and that will make it different. But if they come back for a Dynamite again to LA, I would not be surprised if they struggle to have even less tickets than they sold this time. It was still a packed house overall, but they sold close to 4,000 tickets less than the first time they were here. So I can definitely see them struggling to sell even 7,000 or 8,000 tickets if they're here again at the end of the year. And that's dumb, and that comes to dumb decision-making from Tony Khan with that. And AEW's ticket sales as of late, not good. They're not good. They come to the West Coast here and have some good shows. The crowds are hot. Last night was hot until Rampage, which I'll get to. But yeah, they get some diehard fans. The diehards are always going to show up, but you got to get more than the diehards. And that's what we were seeing for several months now, towards the end of 2022, with ticket sales for AEW struggling, while WWE's tickets for live shows are great right now. So it will be interesting to see if the possible sale of WWE will affect their ticket sales, but so far, for the past several months, even for the past year, I would say, WWE's ticket sales have been strong, whereas the last several months for AEW, they've been struggling. And when you're going to annoy people in the crowd by teasing them that Mercedes Moné might be there, they turned off the lights after the women's match. I think that's just dumb. So don't come crying when they're struggling to sell tickets in LA next time they're here, if it's Dynamite and not a pay-per-view. My negatives for AEW, even watching them live, are my same negatives watching them on TV. There's some like three big negatives. One, their matches are continuously predictable. Every single match on the card, whether it was Dark Elevation, whether it was Dynamite, whether it was Rampage, every single match, you knew who was going to win. It just takes an element out of the company that I think hurts it. And I think that's my main problem with AEW, even live, is that it's just missing something. It's missing something. I don't know if it is the lack of storytelling, because there is a lack of complete storytelling around the board because of the lack of consistency within the booking. Like, it's already been like a month or over a month since Bow Wow was going to have a surprise for Jade Cargill, and yet we've heard nothing about it for a month now. That's just not good storytelling. It's terrible, even. The other problem I have with AEW, and this is a problem some of the people I was there with had, the people that don't watch wrestling consistency or watch it at all, everything is so choreographed. It takes people out of it that aren't big fans of wrestling, but it keeps them from gaining new fans, which is something AEW needs. If your ticket sales continue to struggle, you need new fans. So watching it live, they do a lot of spots where you can just tell what's coming. That's not good pro wrestling to me. Like I've said many times on this channel, I'm an old school pro wrestling fan. I post these old school mini docs from the 80s, even though I'm posting from when I was not even born yet, back in 1982. But I still enjoy 80s and 90s wrestling over anything else because it was just better in those decades to me, because it had better in-ring work. You could do all the moves you want these days in modern wrestling, but if there's no rhyme or reason for them and you're not actively trying to win the match, then it's all for nothing, and it just looks stupid. And also, they just do the same things in a lot of the matches. The amount of chops to the chest spots last night in the matches was overkill. And once Takashita was beating up on Danielson's chest, nobody left on the show should have done a chest spot. But the women tried, and it was weak and awkward. And then others tried on Rampage after the show. I just still have problems with some of the in-ring work in AEW, whether it's live or on TV. It doesn't help create new fans. I'm telling you now, it doesn't. The people I was sitting with, I was in the middle sections. I was not on the floor. The floor is where the diehard AEW fans are, that you will always get to your shows because they're diehard AEW fans. The middle section is people like me who love pro wrestling, who want AEW to succeed, but you still gotta make us want it. We're not as easy as the diehard fans. You still have to make us want it. And so by the time Rampage came around, the crowd was no longer hot. We were tired, I think, because the Rampage card wasn't good. The Acclaimed brought us back up because the Acclaimed is very much over. Caster messed up on his rap and got a "you fucked up" chant because of it. But he was still over. It was still fun. The Acclaimed are still over, despite that pretty big mistake. Good thing it was a taped show and not live. But yeah, I still see a lot of things live that I still find to be a problem on AEW on TV. I want AEW to succeed, but they do have changes they need to make if they're ever actually going to grow as a company. And if ticket sales are going to get better because they are lacking the star power that CM Punk brought to the company, then they're going to either need to get far better storytelling and consistent booking from Tony Khan, or they need to watch the matches that are happening before them and don't do the same spots all night long, because you're just not going to keep fans that way that aren't diehards. I'm telling you now. So Dynamite Live, very fun. I enjoyed Moxley. That was my big story last week. Will Moxley make me a fan again? He did. I found myself rooting for Moxley in his match against Adam Page. I was rooting for Moxley despite knowing that he was going to lose and that he was not the favorite from the crowd, because I'm a rebel without a cause. Adam Cole was a nice surprise. I will say very positive things about Adam Cole is that the fans I'm talking about that I was with and that I was by, who are either not fans of wrestling at all or just, kind of fans sometimes, very impressed by Adam Cole. So they had a lot of love for Adam Cole's promo and his theme song and the energy of the crowd when he came out. So hopefully they can go some places with Adam Cole, because that was a good return for him. I was glad to see Jade Cargill get a pop. I think she's finally being respected as a star that she is by the AEW crowds. Oh, I didn't even talk about MJF. So let me finish this with MJF, because him going for low hanging fruit with his jokes last night, the racial stuff with Takashita. Want to call him Takashita, which is like the lowest hanging lame fruit joke you can do. Ugh, I don't know. I mean, it's funny. It was entertaining. He was entertaining to the crowd in general, but it's gonna get real fast, and it does go against his character, who never really went that low in the past to have to get heel heat. I think the problem was the booking for MJF leading up to that match with Moxley from Tony Khan was atrocious. It was terrible. And I think I talked about it on this channel a couple months ago, how the booking for MJF, where they were teasing him as a face, and it made people were already wanting to cheer MJF. And booking him as a face, even for a couple of weeks, you kind of made people want to cheer him even more. So now he has to struggle and scrape the bottom of the barrel to get heat with bad, cheap jokes. That's not good. Overall, I was happy with the event because it was still fun. Rampage got kind of tired and boring by the time Rampage came around, honestly. Would I go again if AEW comes back to LA? Like I said, I'm one of those fans, they need to earn it. I'm not a hardcore stan of anything. I stan pro wrestling as a whole, but you still gotta earn my money. And so I'm on the fence if I would go again. If it was a pay-per-view, I would strongly consider it. I know the ROH show is going to be here, but it's going to be on the same night as SmackDown, so if I go to anything, it would probably be SmackDown that night. But if AEW comes back for just another Dynamite, I'm not one of those fans that buy tickets at the last second either. So I won't even know if the card is stacked. So I'm on the fence about it. I'm leaning towards I probably wouldn't go if they are here for Dynamite, and I know most of the people I went with or was by, that's like a dozen people, most of them probably wouldn't come back again for the next show if it's a Dynamite, because we are the type of fans you gotta earn our money, and AEW right now is struggling with that type of fan. You see it with the ticket sales over the past several months. Like I said, going to the West Coast helped the ticket sales, but we'll see what comes of the ticket sales these next few months, because they have struggled. It's a fact.